Hello, my name is Kris and I work at the Walnut Cove Public Library, and this is going to be the basics of crochet. The very first thing you need for crochet is going to be crochet hooks. And I have 3 examples here. 2 are wooden and 1 is metal and it's aluminum. But the important thing is that they have 2 different shaped heads on them. This is called an inline hook, and then this is just a regular crochet hook, and the metal one has the same size as this, and different crochet hooks come in different sizes. I have a full set here. These would be used for very small yarn, like what you would use to make doilies with, and these you can use to make pretty much anything. The second thing you're going to need for crochet is some form of yarn. This is just a standard weight of yarn. This one is DK and this one is worsted, but we'll get into that in another video. And this would be the type of yarn you would use to do crochet doilies with. You will also need a pair of scissors. You can also use some form of tape measure because that will come in handy. You will also want some form of a yarn darner or tapestry needle in order to weave in the ends. The bigger the yarn you have, the bigger the eye of the needle needs to be. So you have these that have a kick up at the end that are really handy. You have these cheap plastic ones that you can get for like 100 of them. These you can find pretty much anywhere. And then you have specialty ones that are like this, that the whole thing is an eye, which makes it really easy to put yarn through. And the final thing you will probably want is some form of a stitch marker to use on the important bits of your work. So these are little plastic ones and these are little metal ones, but you can also use something like a bobby pin, which easily slips over the yarn, and you'll need those for marking important parts of your work, such as increases, decreases, or the edges of your work, so that way you won't drop stitches by accident. Okay, so one of the important things when you're learning to crochet is to know what kind of yarn you're buying and what kind of hook you need for it. This box right here is going to tell you the weight of yarn. So this is a number 4, which is medium weight, which usually is a worsted yarn. So the box you're going to be looking for is the one with the crochet hook. These are 2 knitting needles, so you're going to look for the one with the crochet hook. And this says you need to use US size H hook, and that for this, the hooks will say what size they are. So this is an H8 hook. And in order to get 4 inches by 4 inch square, you're going to go 12 stitches across and 13 rows up. And that'll let you know what kind of gauge you're going to get with this type of yarn. So if a pattern says that you need 20 stitches by 28 rows, this wouldn't be a good yarn for that pattern. And the way you can measure your gauge is, we'll take a look at our little sample here. You have to count your stitches across your 4 inches. So you're going to take your measuring tape and put it across. And I don't obviously have 4 inches here, but across an inch, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half stitches. So that's how you're going to count your stitches to figure out how many stitches you have. And then the rows, you can see your rows based on these lines that go across like this. So I only did 4 rows, but you can measure up, and I have 1, oops, make sure you're laying stuff, this should really be on a flat surface, but, so you have 1 line across, 2 lines across, and 3 lines across within a ½ inch. But you're going to want to do this on a 4x4, and when you do, you can always test yarn and pick up your H hook and start with your yarn and attempt a 4x4 square. Okay, another piece of important information you're going to find on your yarn label is going to be what the makeup of the yarn is, which can tell you how to treat it, and these will be your washing instructions. But a major point is not necessarily how much the yarn weighs, but the yardage. So this has approximately 812 yards per this giant skein of yarn. So if you needed 2,000 yarns to make a blanket, you would have to buy 3 of these. This is a similar type of yarn. It is still acrylic, but it's a much smaller skein, but it's still labeled as a number 4. And this would be your crochet hook, which is laid out slightly differently than the crochet hook on the original. And this is your knitting box. So always look for the hook part of the crochet hook if you're going to crochet, and the needles if you're going to be knitting. So this is a yarn bowl. They're not super easy to find, but you can find them at some department stores. But this one is a handmade pottery one I picked up in Dillsboro in their pottery festival. And basically the yarn goes into it and it comes out this hole. So when you are doing your project, the yarn doesn't get tangled. So when you're getting ready to start a project, the very first step anytime you're going to do crochet is you have to do a slip knot. And this is the easiest way to do a slip knot. So let me show you that again. You take the yarn and you wrap it around your pointer finger, and you make sure that when you're holding it, you come across like this. This, and you're going to slip here, and you want to do that so that way you slip your hook in and you tighten it down, and that's going to count as your first stitch for when you begin. So the way we're going to start is you're going to do your slip knot just like that, and you're going to insert your hook and you're going to pull a yarn so that way it is tight against the hook, but you don't want it so tight you can't feel anything. And then you're going to have to figure out how you want to tension your yarn. The way I tension my yarn when I'm crocheting is like this. The tension is important so you don't get the yarn too loose or too tight. So to begin a chain, which is how most crochet projects start, you tension the yarn, you wrap the hook around, and you pull it back through your loop. So I'm going to do that again. You get the hook under your yarn, you hook it, and you pull it through. And you're just going to keep doing that to form a chain. And it creates the small little thing that looks like a chain, which is why it's called the chain stitch. So in order to get a project started, one of the first stitches in crochet you learn is a chain stitch, followed there by a single crochet. So in order to do the single crochet, first you start with a slip knot, and you insert your hook, you pull it tight, you tension your yarn, and you create a chain, and I'm going to chain 10. I've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if you look, you have a chain here, and you're going to skip that one when you're getting ready to do the single crochet. And instead, you're going to insert your hook into this top loop of this second chain from your hook. Like that. And you're going to wrap the yarn, and you're going to pull the yarn through, just like you've been doing for a chain stitch. And you're going to have 2 loops on your hook, and you're going to pull this through, and that will be your first single crochet. And then so you just keep doing the same thing, and you go in the loop, and you hook your yarn, and you pull it through, so you have 2 loops on your hook, and you pull it through. And I'm just going to go across the whole row. So when you get to the end of the row, since you would have chained 10 and you skipped the 1, you're actually only going to have 9 single crochets, and you can tell the top of your work because you have these little V stitches, and you should have 9 of them if you chain 10, so you'll always have 1 less as long as you're doing single crochet. And when you get to the end of the row and you're ready to start the second row, you hook your yarn and you do a chain stitch. Then you're going to turn your work around, so you're looking at the back of your work now. And you're going to go under both loops so it looks of the V. So that way you have the V and your 1 loop here, and you're going to pull the yarn through and under the V, so you have 2 loops, and pull it through. So you're going to insert your hook under the V and pull the yarn through, so you have 2 hook loops, and then you're going to pull it through so you have 1. And see, you have these 2, and so you don't lose track. If you were doing a blanket and you had like 300 stitches, that might get a little hard to tell. So you put your stitch marker in, and then you can keep going. It's under the V, through the both. Okay, so when you're approaching where you put in your stitch marker, you would continue to crochet just as you have been, and you go into the stitches in and you pull it through, and then you can take the stitch marker out, do your chain at the end, turn your work, and you can crochet starting your next row. And I always do 2 stitches before trying to put this stitch marker in. And you can have your little project, and you can do any number of chains that you want to get any size project you want. So if you wanted to do a blanket, you might have to do 300 chains. So when you're ready to begin weaving in your ends, the easiest way to do it is to take your needle and take your yarn and pull it down really tight and slip this off. So you're gonna thread the needle through the eye, and if you look on your work, you can see the line of stitches you went into, and then you can see these little legs of the stitches coming down, and you just want to, on the back of your work, weave it underneath the legs like that. And you don't have to go very far, an inch or two, and then pull it through. And you don't want to jerk it because then it'll scrunch up your work. Just pull it through regularly. You can get that off, and you trim the yarn, and your tail is weaved in. These videos are the back to basics that the Walnut Cove Public Library are doing as a series. Please feel free to like and share the videos if you enjoy them so we can do others, and share with us requests for topics to do. Thank you and goodbye.